The January 3rd executive session of the Clarksville City Council. We are doing things a little differently this month because of the timing of the change in administration and the holidays. Our first order of business is to administer the oath of office to Councilman-elect Bill Powers. And so I'd ask Councilman Powers to meet me down front and members of your family to also join us down front. Okay, sir, are you ready to continue your... Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Bill Powers,
Do solemnly swear
that
I will support
the
Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey all of the laws
and will obey all of the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Tennessee,
and of the state of Tennessee,
and that I will,
in
all respects, support and obey the Charter
and
all ordinances and resolutions of the City of Clarksville, and that I will demean myself in my official capacity as City Council member faithfully, honestly, and with due regard to the welfare of the city to the best of my ability. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the executive session of the Clarksville City Council. As mentioned, it's time to go through our agenda. And for the public who have not attended an executive session before, this is the purpose of this meeting is to allow the council members to discuss the items on the regular session agenda, and we will do so in proper order. Ladies and gentlemen, you have before you the agenda for the executive session. Item number 2, after the oath of office, is the Planning Commission appointment. I'm pleased to report that Councilman Garrett has agreed to accept appointment to the Planning Commission, and I'm obligated to report that to you. The next item on the agenda are the zoning ordinances, one that was postponed and others that will be in a public hearing a little later this evening. So Mr. Tyndall with the Regional Planning Commission, if you would, please, sir, lead us through these ordinances.
Thank you, Mayor Pitts, and welcome council, especially the new council members as well. Just as a quick recap, I'm here representing the Regional Planning Commission, which is an independent body for the city and the county. We handle a lot of the subdivision, site plan, zoning, and future planning. Every month I will come to the city with any zoning requests that require council action and brief you on them and answer as many questions as I can for you. We also have the staff and the board or the commission will both act for approval or disapproval of actions. And you'll see me again on a monthly basis. My door is open to you at any time if you have any questions regarding individual cases or bigger picture questions or problems here in Clarksville or Montgomery County. I'd like to personally thank my wife and my oldest son for coming out tonight, Jessica and Jackson. He's here to learn about what we do here at the city and to make sure I wear this tie, which was a Christmas present. So I'd like to thank him for that. The first item tonight is your ordinance 29, 2018-19. This is the property formally deferred last meeting for 30 days to this month. This is the first reading for the weekly property. Kathy Bitter is the executrix that's currently zoned R4 and R3. And the applicant is only rezoning the portion that is R4, which in this map is in orange on your screen, to IC, which is Institutional and Civic District, for the purpose of the placement of the Loaves and Fishes future home. There's some property pictures on this. Most of the discussion was held last month, but for the new members, I'm able to answer any questions you may have about this. It's a landlocked parcel. The entire parcel is just over 5 acres. The rezoning is just under 4 acres when you take out the R3 parcels. Some of the commercial in the vicinity, this is the corner of Greenwood and Crossland Avenue. This is a little further down. The property will be accessed between these buildings right here by an alley that is currently unconstructed. This is one of the other properties in the area. This is, I believe, is Martin Street or Washington Street to the rear of it. It's actually bound on all 4 sides. Again, it's an internal parcel, as you can see here. Planning Commission recommended approval, and staff also recommended approval of this, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council? Council Lady Streetman.
Sorry. My question would be in reference to the fact of the area that's zoned R4. What type of impact would that have as it's currently zoned if you were to put apartment buildings on there? I know some of the concerns have been traffic and things along those lines. What effect would that have?
Sure thing. It's, again, it's by right that you could put quadplexes or larger on that R4 piece of property. So multifamily, the limits are 16 per acre. So if you did, without rezoning those little R3 legs that stick out there on Martin Street, you'd have approximately 68 maximum units. Historically, we see about 12 units an acre. That'd put that right at 51 units an acre. Those 2 R3 portions could have a triplex on them each, and we think one could actually be subdivided into 2 triplexes, so you could have an additional 9 units. So, 68 plus 9, so 77 units total potentially out there. The height of the building is unrestricted. It's to whatever the fire department deems is appropriate, and they have a 100-foot ladder. And the setbacks against the properties would be 10 feet on the sides and rear. Rear would be 25, sides would be 10, with a no buffer required. However, the Planning Commission does reserve the right for such different uses to put a buffer in. We'd require what's called a B buffer, which is anywhere between 5 and 25 feet, depending how many plants and fences you put up in between the properties.
Okay, so you could essentially have a bigger impact even as it's currently zoned than if we were to change it?
That's to be figured out. Depends on who you are, whether the impact of a residential property or a institutional civic property, different types of impacts. Residential properties, you'd have 24-hour traffic in and out. Could be a bigger structure, maybe more lighting. An institutional civic property as proposed, they have very specific hours of operation, probably not as much lighting, 1-story buildings being proposed, so there's different impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Other questions? Council Lady Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Knowing that we've had several meetings about this property and there are many concerns, we also received a petition. And in that petition, Mr. Womble made some stipulations about the IC district. So I know that if we vote for it, and I know we're not voting now, this executive, just discussion, these conditions would apply if we voted IC district based on that, the petition that he gave us. But right now, this is a residential area. So the IC stipulations or standards does not apply, whether it would apply in the, could you explain it to us? Just help us out.
I think you got it. Sounds like you got it.
I got it, okay.
A soup kitchen, which is defined as any facility that offers free hot meals, would fall under that condition. It's only allowed in several zones. In the institutional civic zone, it's allowed by right without any restrictions.
I see.
If it's in other zones, such as C5 or I believe C2 as well, or the CBD district downtown, it has to meet those restrictions, which is 300 feet from a daycare, preschool, or school, or 1,000 feet from a residentially zoned property. If you're in the CBD, you don't have to do the 1,000 feet, but you still have to do the 300 foot from a school. Those are the conditions that he stated. He probably didn't look at the use table, which has a letter P under institutional civic, which says this is permitted. If it went by permitted with conditions, we wouldn't be here tonight. We'd be at the BZA getting them to request a use permitted under review.
Mr. Tyndall, instead of initials and things, instead of BZA, could you, for us newbies on the council, would you tell us what that is?
Board of Zoning Appeals, which is handled by Mr. Baker in the Codes Department. Try to remember that. Screw up the jargon out tonight. And so what this has basically forced the option buyers of Loaves and Fishes to do is to rezone the property. They met with us back in August. And we said, well, if this is the property you have the option on and this is where you want to go, this is the route you need to take, which puts it in front of the elected body, the city council, to make the ultimate decision. That's why it's before you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lady. I'll get it right in a minute. Thank you, Chair Lady Smith. Councilman Henley.
I was just curious, what's the access look like on Martin Street at this point? I've heard conflicting things, that there wasn't going to be access, and I'm still looking at the maps, and there is, looks like a parking lot or access to the facility.
Or I'll give you the answer I'm supposed to give you, which is this is just a zoning request so that any future site planning will be handled at that time. The conceptual site plan that we saw had initially a emergency access out at Martin Street that they were going to gate off. After last council meeting and after the meeting at the Crossland Baptist Church, which I also attended, Loaves and Fishes has agreed to close that access. I'm not quite sure what they're doing with the parking there, if they're leaving it or not, but they've reduced their site plan and are willing to also fence the property. This is what I've been told. If this gets rezoned, they'll still have to go through the full-blown site plan approval, which these things will be discussed at.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from the council? Mr. Tyndall, you brought up a good point at the last meeting in December where the public hearing was held for this rezoning case. There was concern on the part of the residents. There's been some back and forth negotiation between the organization and the residents, the community. Can you walk us through some of the changes that they've made negotiating? You mentioned parking and moving, shifting away one of the exits from Martin Street, et cetera. Can you walk us through some of that?
Well, I believe those were the two biggest concerns, obviously, besides the concerns over the use in this area by the residents. Again, there was about 2-hour meeting at the Crossland Baptist Church, which is just about 2 blocks from here. I know several members of the council and county commission and residents were in attendance there, as well as the board of Loaves and Fishes, their engineer and their architect. Again, back to the point, this is just for zoning, so when it comes for site plan, we'll have to discuss those challenges later. Not to speak for Loaves and Fishes, but they have conveyed to myself as well as others that they will remove their Martin Street access. The sole access will be that sort of white north-south piece right there off Crossland. That's an unbuilt alleyway. They're going to improve that and build that as their driveway to this site. So all the access will be off Crossland. Hours of operation, they open at 7:30 in the morning for employees and volunteers, but they don't serve lunch till 10:30 till noon. They close shortly thereafter and will lock the gates when the last person leaves.
Thank you for that. Council Lady Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one more question, and I do understand that they are going to put a fence around the facility. And my concern was the cinder block fence. I know they're going to do a chain link, but I know some of the residents was concerned that they wanted to put a cinder block fence to make it more of a private look. And has that changed, or is that still the same?
I'm not aware that that's changed.
It's still the same.
I don't know. So.
I'm not sure either. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Smith. Councilman Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at a diagram, well, it's actually a photograph, and is the parking lot that's on the Martin Street side, is that still in the plan? The me.
I've seen that. I know. I can't answer that question. Again, this will go back for site plan review, which at that point they will agree to accomplish that or not. There's nothing that says they can't do that, except they willingly said, I know that they're considering that.
Councilman Chandler, they have, the organization has negotiated, moved that access point and eliminated some of the parking spaces that would directly impact that home that adjoins their property, which provides a nice little buffer there. But are there other questions that you have regarding that?
Well, it's just, I'm looking at the layout, and this is probably going to be one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make sitting on this council. And I understand exactly where both sides are coming from. And I don't want this to turn into us and them. I think we could blend together. And looking at this map, I can understand if that was my house, I'd be a little upset too. I look out my window, and all of a sudden I've got parking spaces and asphalt. So I'm just wondering if that could be something that could be eliminated back away from these houses, because we're going to have to come to a compromise. Loaves and Fishes does great work. But I also understand too that people have put their life into their homes, and we're going to have to come to a compromise of some kind. And like I said, it's going to be a tough decision.
Thank you, Councilman, for those remarks. Chairman Burkhart, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. When we're doing zoning, site plans are not brought into effect here. The site plan can move, it can go around. I know last month when we had public hearing on this, we talked about it, and there were some things that were said from both sides of trying to work through. I think the excess on Martin Street was one of them, and I think Loaves and Fishes have come back and said they'll shut that down for only emergency use. If there was only a main entrance on Crossland back and forth, that was acceptable. And I think that both sides have kind of said what they wanted last month. I think the Loaves and Fishes people have kind of came back and done almost everything that they could. I'm looking at some of the numbers here, and from the signatures that we have, and it looks like most of the 65 to 70% are actually already rental properties. People that signed this petition. To find a 5-acre tract downtown to carry on this work is almost impossible. If we think about what is available, there's really not anything available for this work. So I will be supporting this, and I would ask my constituents to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Burkhart. Chairman Powers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm with Mr. Chandler. This is a tough one. I think it's important to recognize that if you're 100% for something, you're for it. If you're 51% for something, you're for it. You have varying degrees of how much you are for a project, and we don't have a maybe button. We have to vote yes, and we have to vote no. It's a tough one. I think in this particular instance, I think it's commendable that Loaves and Fishes has met with the residents over there and obviously conceded some of the original plans that they had. And I think that's commendable on their part. I also I have a few other things, and I'll wait till the next session. But I just wanted to interject that I really thought Loaves and Fishes is doing a great job of trying to come up with something that both sides can work with. That's all I have, Mr. Tindall.
Thank you, Chairman Powers. Council Lady Streetman, you're recognized.
Mr. Tyndall, thank you again for answering my question a moment ago. One of the main reasons I was trying to figure that out was to see if, based on attending the information session that I went to, I know a lot of concern, some of the concerns that they had was in reference to the traffic and everything that went along with that. I was really glad to see that, I'm glad to hear from you that essentially they could be facing the same thing regardless if we made the decision. They could be facing even more, I'm guessing, impact as far as traffic and everything is concerned. But one thing I want to say as well has been in reference to talking to the different members with Loaves and Fishes. They've been very great in answering my questions as well as trying to address some of the concerns, including the fencing going around the properties, especially in regard to the residential areas, so that it's not feeling so institutionalized for them.
Thank you, Council Lady. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Tyndall, any closing thoughts on this item before we move on?
Just a reminder, a lot of what's been discussed about can they do this, can they do that? Unfortunately, in the state of Tennessee, you're not allowed to contract zone, which means you can't zone it and say, we'll zone it if you don't do this, or put parking here or there, put a fence here or there. You have to just zone it. And the RPC will get their site plan application in the future if it's rezoned, and we'll work through that with the applicants and sit down at the table and their engineers and make sure what works, keeping these things in mind.
We work in good faith with the partners, and so we thank you for your work on this one. In particular, reminder to the council that we've already had the public hearing on this issue, so when we go into regular session, we'll be discussing and then voting on the matter. Next item, Mr. Tyndall.
Sure. Next item is Ordinance 38, 2018-19. It's the first reading of zoning ordinance. Property, Philip O'Neill Walker. Agent was Houston Smith. Current acreage of this property is 6.45. This is an interesting one. It's actually triple zoned right now. It's got a little bit of ag, a little bit of R1, and a little bit of C1. As you can see, the R1 sort of sweeps through this area of Ringgold Road. I think back in the day there may have been an area-wide rezoning in the late 70s. I'm sorry, 86 is when it was done. And they just maybe went half a mile off the back of the road and sort of swung a R1 strip through there. It was later zoned C1 and also in 86 for the desire to potentially put up a farm stand, which never materialized. The property currently is vacant with agricultural fields in Rolling Hills. The proposed request is to go to R4. It's not an extension of the zoning classification, though, as you can see, R4 is across the street to the south and across the rail bed right out there. It's located at the frontage of Ringgold Road, north of Brentwood Circle. The proposed use by the applicant stating to go to apartments. Here's a photo of the property looking north. This is also the property looking a little more to the east. This is the exit of the Brentwood Circle subdivision, looking again across to the north at that property. Property would be to your left here. Entrance to the subdivision we just came out of is on the right. Here's Ringgold Road. Looking to the left, to the west. The only comments we received were from the school system. They're there for you to read regarding parent responsibility zone for Ringgold Elementary. Historical estimates for this piece of property would be for 76 lots. It's in the Peters Mill planning area. Staff recommended approval based on the fact that the proposed zoning is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The R4 zoning request is not out of character with other R4 districts in the area. There is adequate infrastructure serving the site and no adverse environmental effects were identified at this time, and the Regional Planning Commission also voted for approval.
Council Lady Guzman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is for the C1 part of that, how many acres does that cover for that C1, and what could actually go there if we didn't put apartments, say if we left it C1? I know that we could have some small businesses. I just wanted to know what could actually go there.
C1s are our least intense commercial district in the city. You could have such things like a baker or a barber, a cafe. I'll also pull out specific things that you can't have: no car washes, no car repair, boat repair is not allowed. You could have a jewelry store even. You can't have a hotel. You could have a laundromat. You could have a liquor store, in fact. You could have a pet shop. So it's just a little more scaled down with less of the highway type commercial properties. I'm not quite sure from the scale of this. I'd have to say that property's right about 2 acres maybe of C1, but again, it was for a use that never materialized at the time.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council Lady Guzman. Councilman Erb, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I got an email from one of my constituents. This is in my ward. And he was saying that already with the development that's around him, his property adjoins this. There's problems with drainage where his backyard is flooded. And then he's afraid that more development is just going to make the problem worse. And then there's other comments, but one of the most startling was in your report, Ringgold Elementary is currently at 90% capacity with already 3 portable classrooms. And if you walked along Ringgold Road, you're taking your life in your own hands. And I was wondering, reading this, I'm saying, are they going to have we're going to have kids walking down there to go to Ringgold without a sidewalk?
The school system provides monthly comments on zoning and subdivision requests, and the comments are very similar. They kind of, I don't want to say rubber stamp, but they have a form they kind of follow, and they give that sort of capacity, how many portables, if it's in the area. And obviously there's a push now to start connecting our schools and our neighborhoods so that walking is available. And if you're within that 1.5 miles and you have a safe route to school, which walking on the road is not a safe route to school, but if there is a safe route to school, say there were sidewalks installed out here, you could actually pull buses off the road and the students may walk with parents or doing a walking school bus scenario. But that's just their comment to make sure that you know that if there were sidewalks, you would be in that sort of a scenario.
Okay. I was just concerned, I wouldn't want my granddaughter walking down there.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And if I may address the drainage, if you want me to do that too.
Yes, please.
This is a picture. You can see the property has a bit of a draw in the middle of it and then rises again in the back. And his property is the more greener property to the right there. And the drainage goes, I believe it's east to west out here. And the only thing I can say about that, and then an engineer can also explain this if Houston Smith is here, but as they develop this, they will have to impose stormwater controls. They may actually improve the situation out there, and they won't make it worse in the sense that they'll have to take that water, do something with it when it comes to stormwater detention, and then release it down to the old rail bed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Erb. Councilman Chandler, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you back up to the slide that has that one right there? It seems like about every other month we get a request on Ringo Road. And I'm just wondering, do you have any idea how many of these that we have approved for rezoning to R4 that have been completed or waiting to be completed or...
All the R4 in this area right now that you see, everything in orange to the west, I can't speak of the areas off Peters Mill Road, have been developed. The most recent rezoning case you saw was just over the rail bed to the west in that more brown color. That's the R6 zone. That's currently under construction right now for some single-family, smaller lots, smaller homes. But the idea behind that is to be not rental as in an apartment building, but fee-simple ownership. Folks who may want a smaller lot but want to start paying a mortgage and investing in a house rather than renting. So that right now is the only application in the last 6 months that's been approved and is under construction in this area.
Well, I say this quite often, at least for the next 2 years until I get voted out of office or decide not to run again, we're back to square one. Councilman Erb brought it up. We keep on developing these areas, and the next thing you know, somebody's going to be hollering for sidewalks, road improvements, and it'll come from this group here. We'd have to want to be spending the money to do it. Again, we just got to watch what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Chandler. A word to the wise is sufficient. We got that. Anybody else would like to ask questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On to the next part of our agenda, the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 23, 2018-19, second reading. Authorizing extension of utilities to property located on Lisa Court, request of Vernon Weekly. Ordinance 30, 2018-19, second reading. Authorizing negotiations and purchase of easements and or rights of way for use of eminent domain for acquisition of property for the Northeast Connector Project. Ordinance 31, 2018-19, second reading. Authorizing negotiations and purchase of easements and or rights of way for or use of eminent domain for acquisition of property for intersection improvement at Trenton Road and Meriwether Road. Ordinance 32, 2018-19, second reading. Amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Luke Baggett, Sid Hedrick, buyers and Harvey agent, for zone change on property located at the intersection of Charlotte Street and Current Street from R3, 3-family residential district to R6, single-family residential district. Ordinance 33, 2018-19, second reading. Amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Crocker Rental Partnership for zone change on property located east of Fort Campbell Boulevard, south of Park Lane, north of Maple Street, and west of Rebecca Lane, from C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District to R4 Multiple Family Residential District. Ordinance 34, 2018-19, second reading. Amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Betty G. Henley, David Henley agent, for zone change on property located at the intersection of Providence Boulevard, Beach Street, and Plum Street, from R4 Multiple Family Residential District to C2 General Commercial District. Ordinance 35, 2018-19, second reading. Amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Richard Collins for zone change on property located at the west terminus of Batts Lane from RM1 Single Family Mobile Home Residential District to R4 Multiple Family Residential District. Ordinance 36, 2018-19, second reading. Amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of BJ Properties for zone change on property located at the intersection of Heritage Point Drive and Tinytown Road from C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District to R4 Multiple Family Residential District. Ordinance 37, 2018-19, second reading. Amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of CBP Properties, Houston Smith agent, for zone change on property at the intersection of High Street and Perkins Avenue from R3, 3-family residential district to R6, single-family residential district. Adoption of minutes, December 6, 2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions regarding the consent agenda? Councilman Chandler, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to register a no vote on ordinance 33, 2018-19. Oh, never mind. My fault. I'm jumping an hour ahead.
You've always been ahead of yourself. Overachiever. Anybody else have any questions? I've got a question, if no one else does, regarding item number 2. Ordinance 30, 2018-19 regarding the purchase of easements, rights of way for the acquisition of property on the Northeast Connector project. It may be pertinent. Somebody from the street department, Mr. Shepard, Mr. Cowan, you want to draw straws and see who comes? Mr. Cowan, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The question I have is, this talks about the Northeast Connector project. Which part of the connector does this property lie in?
This actually applies to the entire project.
Okay.
From Trenton Road all the way to Ted Crozier Boulevard.
Okay. How many parcels are involved, and do you remember any of those details?
I believe it's in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 properties. But I can check that to be sure to show the right information on.
And are we purchasing or looking to acquire all of those parcels?
At this time, we're not. This is actually for us to give us the right to be able to negotiate on behalf of the city.
Okay.
At this time, we've been talking with you. I think this is a new project for you, and you wanted to be abreast of the information on that. We'll basically move forward when you and the council feel like it's appropriate for us to do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Chairman Burkhart, you are recognized.
I said this last month, but I'll repeat. I don't think the final construction plans are done. However, this could affect a piece of property that I am a third owner in, and I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. I hope you stay away from it, and I would encourage you to. Thank you.
Forewarned is forearmed. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on this issue? Okay. Any other questions on the consent agenda? All right. Moving along. Committee reports. Finance Committee, Chairman Burkhart. Gas and Water Committee, Chairman Powers.
No report, sir.
Housing and Community Development Committee, Chairman Allen.
I'll give my report during the regular session, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Parks and Recreation Committee, Chairman Guzman.
I'll give my report in about 45 minutes.
All right, stay tuned for that. Public Safety Committee, Chairman Henley.
I'll give it here in about 45 minutes as well, sir.
Thank you. I sense a common theme emerging here. Streets and Garage Committee, that would be Chairman Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor. Since they got 45, I'll take 46.
Okay, thank you. Nice to see our senses of humor are intact. Transportation Committee, Council Lady Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I ditto the same.
Okay. That was easy. Okay, Mayor and staff reports, public comments. We are now at public comments. Any staff reports before we get to the public comments?
The LG resolution.
Pardon me, I was looking. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm working off a different page. Thank you, Chairman Burkhart. The item under new business has to do with the renaming of a stretch of road in honor of LG, who has established a fairly significant manufacturing plant in our community, cranking out washing machines as we speak. And they had asked for and requested a stretch of road from the terminus of the exit ramp on 24 up to the city limits, which is just past Sam's Club, to be renamed LG Highway, and that resolution is before you. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Only one property owner, I think, is affected by that. Questions? Councilman Richmond, you have a question?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious, what does naming the highway, what does renaming the highway to LG Highway accomplish? It's
part of the recognition and branding of that part to allow visitors and people coming to our community and through our community to know kind of where LG is located. And we also renamed a portion of Rossview Road after Hankook Tire when they came to town. So I think this bookends those significant investments in our community.
Okay. So just a branding and recognition.
More about branding and recognition, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, now we're at the end. Staff reports. Any staff reports that we need to know about? And I'll report in 47 minutes. Okay.
Now we can do public comments.
Pardon?
Now we can do public comments.
All right. Now we have time for public comments. Anybody from the public wish to come forward and address the council? Yes, sir.
Anything except zoning.
Anything except zoning, sir.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. I'm new at this too. Any other public comments? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That concludes our executive session. We will reconvene at 7 p.m. sharp for regular session for January 3rd. Thank you.